Hi, I'm Matt Hernandez, and this is Book Chat with You. In most episodes, I try to have this be a conversation with you about short stories. For now, I'm still going over the Sensational Spider-Man issue 39, Back in Black, and this leads into Brand New Day. Now, this comic is very dark. It is not for kids. I should have said that very quickly into the last episode, Sensational Spider-Man 38. Now, what's interesting is that as dark as this is, Brand New Day then becomes a very hard reboot. It is not a soft reboot at all. It's a very hard reboot of the Spider-Man franchise. And then it's much more kid-friendly and stuff. So before that very hard reboot, people, I guess they wanted to experiment with some pretty dark themes and whatnot. Well, this is continuing from the last one. So the cover of this is of Venom, his face and his hands with these sharp claws hovering over Aunt May. If you can recall, she has been shot. She's in the hospital. She was shot because someone was aiming for Spider-Man, might have been aiming for Mary Jane. Peter Parker pushes Mary Jane out of the way, and they were aiming, Peter Parker himself because he had given everybody his identity. And then I guess maybe I'm giving a spoiler, but then in Brand New Day, well, it's a hard reboot of the series. Nobody knows who he is anymore, and everything is fresh and nice again. So now as you look here, and I like to go over the ads because, they could be quite fun and stuff. I noticed that maybe last time it's almost kind of distracting, right? As soon as I turn the page and I'm on the inside cover, it says Daddy Day Camp. I've never watched this movie, rated PG. Kind of interesting because this issue is quite dark. And then we have a silly picture of a man being pulled into a tent by a bunch of kids. And there's like a raccoon on top of the tent. And then we get this kind of prologue kind of telling us where we are now in the series. I already went over the last issue, so no need to go over that one. Then on the next page, it says New York City on the brink. And we have Eddie Brock on a building, kind of as if he has kind of like the Spider-Man kind of Venom powers, where, maybe, he can sort of stick to the wall a little bit without a risk of a gust of wind pushing him over. But at this point, he has no powers. And he's inside of this sort of makeshift Venom costume, and he's holding a mask. Of course, even the costume itself is kind of oversized on him because I guess his cancer treatments have made him lose quite a bit of weight. And Venom is behind him. Of course, there probably is no Venom. And maybe somebody else can give me an interpretation of this. This would all just be in his mind. Of course, a kind of retcon to this later on is that there becomes a character called Anti-Venom, where Eddie Brock develops a different kind of symbiote powers later on. But I think that's kind of a retcon to this. I don't think that any of this is actually happening. I think that it's all in Eddie Brock's mind. I mean, he's on a roof, but any vision he has of Venom, of that old self of his, does not exist. So Venom is telling him to do bad things, in particular to Aunt May. And it's also a bit interesting too because Venom, Eddie Brock already knew who Spider-Man was and would have already have known of Aunt May. So, I mean, it's just that much darker that now he's deciding to target or being encouraged to target an innocent woman when, in fact, he could have done this whole time. But as he's losing his mind right here, he's having those thoughts. So on the next page, a nurse goes to Eddie Brock's room, just normal stuff, go and bring him a meal. And she asks if he's up. Eddie Brock, inside of this symbiote costume, is behind her. And then he's behind her and he says, Eddie's not here anymore. And then she says, Mr. Brock, what are you doing? She says, put that scalpel, and then he says, down, Nurse Sims, and then he jumps at her. And of this page, on the next page, we hear a vacuum so loud that they don't quite hear something. I mean, it says, did you hear that? But they don't hear it very clearly. I feel this way a lot lately in Vegas now. Oh my gosh, my ears are constantly ringing. And I feel that the city is so incredibly loud. So incredibly loud. We go to the next page, and the nurse is dead. It's quite dark. It's not a very comic book kind of rated for like 10-year-olds kind of killed, right? It's just brutal. There's blood there. Eddie takes off his mask. We see through his reaction, which I've been studying and looking at a bit lately, we see through his reaction how brutal his actions are. And we can see, and there's quite a nice contrast, with the colors on the page and these blue eyes with how wide his eyes are, and yet how small his pupils are within it. Then on the next page, we see this Venom, and the artist keeps drawing Venom a bit differently, right? On the next page, it says, "Oh goody, feels like someone's gotten their taste for killing back." Yet I don't know if that's always been this Venom of this continuity, what Earth 616, where Venom just had a desire itself to kill. I mean, I've read a lot of Spider-Man comics with Venom in it, but is this really who Venom has always been? And so he's drawn a bit like a serpent, right? I mean, from about what I would say would be about the ribs down, as it goes down, it's really part like a snake look, and he's clapping his hands. And then on the next page, it says, "But May Parker." So somehow there's a guilty conscience within Eddie Brock that feels that May Parker is that much more innocent, which in a way how does one gauge that in their mind? It's really a sick thing, isn't it? Now, inside the next page, we see another ad. Legendary comic book heroes. Bunch of characters, most of which I've never heard. And in fact, how many of these might even be Marvel? No, it's Dark Horse, because I see Judge Dredd. Then, the next page, now we see now we see a Venom against a hospital window, looking out the window. And this looks like the strong, normal Eddie Brock, legs and all, that we would be used to seeing. And behind him, we see, Eddie Brock not wanting to listen. What does this represent? Is it drug addiction? What ailment must be going on that this is trying to be a parallel of? Now, Peter Parker, he's in his aunt's hospital room, and he says, "Officially, I'm not even supposed to be here. I'm still a fugitive, one of America's most wanted, and not in a good way. Most of the people I would normally ask for help, most of them are dealing with their own stuff. So it's just like the good old days, me grasping at straws." Yeah, so I mean, I've read enough Spider-Man from like the 80s where Spider-Man he wasn't included inside like the cool guys club with the other heroes and whatnot. He was always a little bit, excluded and stuff. But now that he's like in the in club, now he's a fugitive and he can't quite ask for help. But I think he will ask for help, and I don't think I have all the issues for that, and I don't know what I'm going to do when I come up to that very, very soon. And by very, very soon, it seems like a long time from now. Now we see an ad. It says new flavor, Yogo Bites, and don't think I've ever had these. Another kids ad for a very dark comic. It's kind of reminiscent of kids' toys for rated R movies like RoboCop. So now we get Peter Parker again. He's in the room with his aunt. He says, "I know what you'd say, too, about my plan. A seance, heavens, Peter. Let it be. I'll wake up when I'm good and ready. But the truth is," so now he wants to go and have this seance. So, outside the room, it says, "Felicia Hardy, the black cat, is keeping watch outside. This late, this lounge shouldn't get many visitors, but you never know." So, Felicia Hardy being the black cat, seems that he has asked her for help, and it seems like Felicia Hardy, the Black Cat, has not revealed her identity to everybody. Then, cuts all the way to Peter Parker, Aunt May, Anna Watson, MJ's aunt, finally wading into the mess I've made of our lives. There with Aunt Webb, their medium. So now they have a seance. And how might some of you guys feel about this? Should a comic like this have a seance? I mean, is this bothersome at all? I don't know. So then the art style changes very much whenever they go into the seance mode. It's this kind of digital art style that you would see in some comics at that time, where some comics they might have been drawn by hand as normal or as commonly used, and then they might brush it up digitally, or if it's just all digital, I'm not sure. But this was also used inside the Toxin comic, for instance, the where it was Spider-Man, Venom, Carnage, and they introduced a new symbiote character, Toxin, and it was all this kind of digital artwork style. It says, so in this, Peter thinks, which may be hiding in memory. Madam Web told us in an individual memory or a collected memory. Any one of us could find her, apparently. But I'm really hoping it's, whoa. There they are, clutching each other, crying, holding on for dear life. God, we look so young. Not just me, Aunt May, too. Thank you, Peter. That's a nice compliment. Aunt May? Now, Peter was thinking this, and then it says, thank you, Peter. That was a nice compliment. So she responds to his thoughts. So, next page, another ad. I'm starting to see just how distracting these ads really could be. Same ad as before, this confusing ad of a Nintendo DS. The Hulk is going to be in a Marvel movie, are you? And Ballpark. So this came out 2007, so they probably mean the Edward Norton Incredible Hulk movie. What a confusing ad. Say goodbye, Aunt May. I came to bring you back, Peter. He's made contact. Keep concentrating. Maintain the circle. So we see them holding hands in a circle. Then below it, this digital art. Peter, I don't want to come back. What? I'm tired, Peter. And I've been down this road too many times. Aunt May, are you... Sorry, but are you giving up? So now they show Aunt May on the hospital bed in one panel on the bottom in this conventional art style. And then on the next page, this digital art style again. That bullet was meant for me, Aunt May. I can't. I won't let you die in my place. Oh, but Peter, how many years would I have left? And if that bullet had struck you, and you were where I am, think of all the good that would be undone. Okay, so Peter, we can already see his, I don't know the right word, obsession with not wanting to let his aunt go. Maybe obsession's not the right word, but nevertheless. Okay, now we're back in the hospital. Okay, these first three pictures, I could do a bit of a spot the difference, but they look the same. Go down to a fourth panel down. It says hello, and we see Eddie Brock. He's wearing a doctor's coat underneath it with the fake kind of symbiote Venom costume. And then we see here, Venom says she's in a coma, Eddie. She can't answer you. Now hurry up, hurry up. Then here, Aunt May in the hospital bed. Then Eddie Brock puts on the mask. And then she says, what are you waiting for? Nothing. So here, they're having this sort of seance again. And we see Aunt May sort of go into a house. And she says, goodbye, Peter. Peter doesn't want her to go goodbye. Then it says, Aunt May, no, concentrate. She's gone. The door's locked. The energy's draining. Aunt May. Okay, we're back at the hospital. Eddie Brock is having this huge struggle within himself to, well, kill or not kill. Okay, they go back to the hospital. I mean, Madam Web, Peter Parker, Aunt May. We see Felicia Hardy, which I'm assuming is at the hospital this whole time, and Mary Jane's aunt. They're at the hospital. They go to physically see Aunt May. They go there. Peter Parker, Spider sense something's wrong. Turn the page, and then we get some kind of card game I never heard of. Is it on the computer? Kind of looks like it, but then you see a card deck as well. It's called chaoticgame.com. You see 4Kids TV. Never heard of this. I'm starting to think these ads are just very distracting, so I don't know. Then this next one. It says Eddie Brock is talking to Peter Parker. She's all right, Peter. He wanted me to hurt her, but I wouldn't. The nurse, yes, but not someone as innocent as good as your aunt is. Peter Parker, Eddie, who wanted you to hurt Aunt May? Okay, they exchange a few words back and forth. Eddie says, I cut him out of my life. Next page, an ad for Universal Studios Orlando. Oh my gosh. It really does break the flow, doesn't it? It's kind of interesting. Eddie Brock shows his arms, and there are scars all over it. Quite dark, dark, dark stuff. Then he goes to jump out the window. Peter Parker uses his webs, catches Eddie Brock. Eddie Brock wakes up in the hospital bed, and he is handcuffed to the hospital bed with bandages on his arms. And then it ends with Eddie Brock telling the symbiote, telling Venom, now you know who's in charge. And in a sense, I think this is the last we see of Venom in this continuity, which is quite interesting, right? Because after this, Brand New Day, we don't see Venom for a while, or Eddie Brock for a while, and whenever we finally do, it's a new continuity. Okay, it says next issue. I don't think I've ever read this issue, and I probably will end up skipping it. I'd like to read it. I don't have it. Next issue, and I believe in that one, Spider-Man Meets God. And I wouldn't know if it's blasphemous or whatever. I'd be interested in reading it. Then we see an ad for Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer for the video game of it. Last page. Oh, it's also related to the Fantastic Four, a ad for milk, God's Milk. Well, this was quite long, and so with that, I probably shouldn't say too much more. I will try to record another one soon. Okay, thank you. Bye.